this defence and political issue that sort of exploded this week in relation to how Australia speaks diplomatically about Israel. The Australian newspaper's Foreign Affairs editor, Greg Sheridan, joins me now. It's a huge issue. You've written about it in The Australian, Greg. Help us understand why the move this week from Penny Wong to now refer to West Bank settlements and Gaza settlements as illegal under international law. And I guess the concern I have that this is an end to what has been many years of bipartisanship on the issue of Israel and these settlements.
Well, Peter, you're right. The issue is diabolically complicated. Israel withdrew all its settlements from Gaza, so there are settlements in the West Bank. Israel also annexed East Jerusalem, but some people consider all the Jewish presence in East Jerusalem, even at the Wailing Wall and at the Temple Mount and so on, to be settlements. I think the bigger change was that the government decided to resume calling West Bank and Gaza occupied Palestinian territories. Now, the Abbott government changed this quite deliberately because it subjected it under George Brandis as Attorney General to a very searching legal analysis and came to the view that the West Bank and Gaza are disputed territories. The last undisputed sovereignty exercised in those territories was by the Ottoman Turks. And before Israel conquered those territories in a war of self-defence in 1967, the West Bank, for example, was occupied by Jordan. But Jordan has no desire to resume sovereignty of the West Bank and no capability to do so. And if Israel's occupation is illegal, then it should leave. But if it left, what would happen? There'd be civil war in amongst the Palestinians. The extremists would take over, as they have in Gaza. They would launch attacks on Israel, and Israel would be forced to reconquer the territory and reabsorb it. On the issue of settlements, because it's disputed territory, I think Israel is ill-advised to expand the settlements, because if Israel itself believes in a two-state solution, then there will have to be territory which the Palestinians can build a state on. But defining all Jewish presence in the West Bank or in East Jerusalem as illegal, I think is wrong on the law, wrong morally, and politically wrong too. And it's just a way to try to appease the left in the hope that they don't pass more embarrassing resolutions against the Albanese government at the National Conference of the ALP.
How shameful is this sort of horse trading going on? That this is where Labor has got to in their conference soon to kick off in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, well, I think it's a mistake for the Albanese government to do this. I think, you know, Bob Hawke showed us that a sensible Labor Prime Minister who stares down the left and defeats the left of his own party in the national interest will win the backing of mainstream Australia. Now, of course, our politics is a bit different now. We've got lots of teals and lots of greens and, you know, the whole paradigm has moved a bit left. But you're better... So the left wants a resolution which says the Albanese government must formally recognise a Palestinian state this term. Well, that, of course, is completely absurd because there is no Palestinian state, doesn't satisfy any of the criteria for statehood, and recognition would be completely absurd. So what the Albanese government is trying to do is give a, you know, futile symbolic gesture to appease the left. And by the way, nothing that we do in Australia is going to make it the blind bit of difference to any dispute between the Israelis and the Palestinians. This is purely empty symbolic politics. And I think overall, I think the Albanese government has been quite sensible on national security. So I think it's a pity that it gives this ridiculous gesture to the left, and it's, you know, it's offensive to the Israelis, and Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. Why would we spit in the face of our friends to appease our enemies? Doesn't seem to make much sense to me.
Can I get a comment from you on a report today in The Australian that the government's going to move to enact new laws that every time Australia looks to commit troops to a conflict, and this is done, as you know, by executive government, by the Prime Minister, National Security Committee meetings, that before they can do that, they're going to have a parliamentary debate. Now, I don't recall this being on the table or debated even during the election campaign. What do you think of the move?
Well, it depends. The devil will be in the detail. I don't mind the requirement that there be a parliamentary debate, after it happens. And I can't imagine that any legislation will prevent a government from moving, rapidly if it has to. But you don't want the requirement that there be a debate before it happens. On the other hand, the power to make the decision will rest still with the executive government. And a government will win a debate in the House of Representatives, otherwise it's not the government. If the government can't guarantee its numbers in the House of Representatives, it's not the government. I suppose this could make a government a little more gun-shy, but I think, in fact, defence generally is under-scrutinised in Australia, and it would be better if there were more parliamentary debates on defence. I think it's very good that the government is moving to create, and this was Liberal Party policy as well, to create a special parliamentary committee to oversee the Defence Department. I mean, ASIS and ASIO get more parliamentary scrutiny than Defence does. Defence is a black hole of opaque, misery where strategic dreams die and where billions of dollars are wasted and God knows what actually happens there. So parliamentary scrutiny of defence is no bad thing. But I'm sure the government won't allow the Parliament a decision-making role in these deployments. I think it'd be a mistake if they said that you have to have the debate before you make the deployment. But if it said you have to have a debate as soon as practical afterwards, I don't have a big problem with that myself.
All right, as long as we can move with alacrity and we don't have to recall the Parliament at a cost of $1 million a day to have a whole lot of politicians over summer flap their jaws when, the guys in the camo and the girls in the camo are already on the plane and they're on their way. But Greg, we'll see what happens. Thank you for your time as always.